This is an important update following our first video on Prime Minister James Marape's testimony in the 41.8 million kina Paul Paraka payment scandal. And let me tell you, this changes everything. We now have more details about Marape's statements in court, and they reveal a deeper and even more troubling picture of how these payments were made despite direct orders to stop them. But now, a new question emerges. Did Marape really do enough, or is his role in this more complicated than it seems? Marape says he warned them, but his orders were ignored. At the time of these events, James Marape was serving as Finance Minister under then Prime Minister Peter O'Neill. And here's where it gets interesting. Marape testified that he personally consulted O'Neill regarding Paul Paraka's legal bills. O'Neill's response? No payments should be made. With that directive, Marape instructed the Finance Secretary, the late Stephen Gibson, and Deputy Secretary Jacob Yafai to halt all payments to Paraka Lawyers. But here's where the scandal explodes. Despite these clear instructions, 40 million kina was still paid out. And this is where the story takes another twist. Yafai's lawyer challenges Marape. Was there really any proof? Yafai's lawyer, Edward Sasingian, went straight for the jugular. He questioned whether Marape had any real evidence to prove that he gave clear instructions to stop payments. Sasingian argued that there was no official record of Marape instructing Yafai or Gibson not to pay Paraka Lawyers. Instead, the only written evidence was a side note from Marape on a letter from Paul Paraka. And this note? It advised Yafai to peruse, verify and settle the claims. That doesn't exactly sound like a direct order to stop payments, does it? When challenged, Marape defended himself, saying that while he may not have given a formal written order, he issued verbal instructions to Yafai and Gibson. And then, Marape dropped another bombshell. Marape admits payments happened despite his orders. Even though Marape insisted that his verbal instructions were as good as written ones, he admitted something shocking. On November 1st, 2012, a 14 million kina payment was still made to Paul Paraka Lawyers. And according to Marape, this completely caught him off guard. It took me by surprise that 14 million kina was paid despite my instructions not to pay, Marape told the court. So now the biggest question remains. If Marape's orders were so clear, why were they ignored? Was it just Gibson and Yafai acting alone? Or was there a bigger force behind the scenes pushing for these payments? The secret behind the payments. Reserve trust accounts. We now know that these payments didn't just come from any account. They were taken from reserve trust accounts. And it gets worse. Investigations revealed that between 2007 and 2011, the Department of Finance had already paid over 162 million kina to Paraka Lawyers. 65 checks were issued, with each one ranging from 1 million kina to 5 million kina. And here's where the scandal goes even deeper. It wasn't just one law firm involved. Allegations suggest that multiple law firms acted as middlemen, funneling the money back to Paraka's firm in a carefully orchestrated scheme. Now, let's take a moment to think about this. This means we are not just dealing with a simple misappropriation case. We are looking at an elaborate, well-organized network that may have been operating for years. Who else was involved? Were there more people inside the government who allowed this to continue? Yafai's suspension. Did Marape really have no choice? Marape insisted in court that both Gibson and Yafai ignored his direct orders. And that's why he had no choice but to suspend Yafai on May 16th, 2013. And interestingly, Marape pointed out that when both Gibson and Yafai were questioned by police in 2013, their statements confirmed that he had instructed them not to make payments to Paraka Lawyers. But here's where Sasingian turned the argument around. He suggested that Marape actually knew the payments were being made and even gave instructions to process them. Marape flatly denied this, saying that he suspended both men precisely because they didn't follow his orders. But then, Chief Justice Sir Gibbs Salika stepped in with a tough question. Mr. Marape, were you aware that there was an NEC decision that also stopped all payments to Paraka? And Marape's answer? My memory does not recall that NEC decision, so I was not aware of it at the time. Wait, what? The biggest conviction yet. Paraka sentenced to 20 years. If you thought this case was just about Yafai, think again. In May 2023, the National Court, presided over by Justice Teresa Berrigan, found Paul Paraka guilty on 5 counts of misappropriation, totaling over 162 million kina. Her ruling was clear. This was an elaborate scheme that betrayed the public's trust. The punishment? 20 years in prison. But here's what we need to ask. If Paraka was found guilty for his role in the payments, then what about the people who processed them? What about those who approved the transactions?